Is it true that all annuities are scams? If you are near retirement or you know somebody who is, then you've probably heard the term. An annuity is just a service where I give my money to someone else, they invest it for me and pay me out over time. And these providers are clearly profitable or they wouldn't provide the service. The problem is that their profit comes directly out of my nest egg. Success for the provider means that they're paying me as little as possible and keeping as much of my money for themselves as possible. But there is a way to beat the system. There is a way to get more out of the providers than the providers get of you. Annuities make their money in 3 ways. First, they will charge you fees over time for managing your investments and paying you out. Second, they might cap your returns. Depending on the type of annuity you have, if it's linked to the market, if the market goes up by 10%, they might only pay you out 8.5%. And then finally, certain annuities will return your money upon death, but other annuities, you will not get your money back when you die, which sounds scary, but more on this one later. There are 4 basic types of annuity. First, you have your immediate annuities where you pay your premium up front and then they immediately start paying you out a certain percentage every year. You have your deferred annuities where you pay your premium and then after 5 or 10 years, they will then start paying you out. It could be they start paying you a set rate, or they give you a lump sum based on how much money that annuity made during the deferral period. Then you have your fixed annuities, where the rate that you get over time is a fixed amount. And then finally, you have your variable annuities, where they might be tied to an index of some kind. You'll get a greater payout if the market does well, and you'll get a lower payout if the market does not do so well. So the question is, why would you want an annuity? The answer is it provides an insurance policy. It takes some of the risk off the table. Historical analysis shows that if you have the standard retirement portfolio, which is 60% stocks and 40% bonds, and then you withdraw 4% every year and then adjust for inflation, historically you've had about a 90% chance of success. But in today's market conditions, new projections show that you've got about a 57% chance of failure. This scares a lot of retirees. They want to take some of that risk off the table for a small cost, lock in a set amount of money that they might receive over time in exchange for not quite as high of an upside. If the market does really well, you get a lot of benefit from having 60% stocks, but if you go ahead and lock in an annuity, sure, you'll have a lower payout over time, but it is more guaranteed. Before I can decide which annuity is best, I have to understand what ways a traditional portfolio will fail, and then I have to pick the annuity that counters that failure scenario the best and for the least amount of money. The first way that your retirement portfolio is likely to fail is through sequence of return risk. On average, the stock market does go up over time, but there will be periods of bad returns and negative returns, and then there will be periods of really good returns. If you have the bad returns first, at the very beginning of your retirement, while you're drawing it down, this is a recipe for disaster. You are much more likely to fail, and failure is your portfolio running out of money if you have negative returns right off the bat. If we look at this chart right here, these 2 different scenarios, they have the exact same returns, just happening in different orders. The light blue line shows a 25% return in the first year, and then a 10% return, and then a 5% return, and then a -15. And then you can see the difference. The dark blue has that -15 return first, and then they have the positive returns. Just by switching the order, you can see that the dark blue portfolio fails after 25 years, while the light blue portfolio fails after 40 years. In order to counter sequence of return risk, you need your annuity to be insulated from the market. So I don't want an annuity that has variable returns. If my annuity is going to give me less of a payout, if the market does poorly early on, then it's not fixing the problem of sequence of return risk. So I want a fixed annuity to counter sequence of return risk. The second way that a retirement portfolio commonly fails is from inflation risk. If your bare bones expenses is $40,000 a year and then we experience 10% inflation, then in year 2, you're gonna need $44,000. And then if we have another year of 10% inflation, check my math, now you're up to $48,400 in expenses. So you can see how this can get out of hand really quickly. If there is higher inflation than what you expect, then you will be forced to draw down your portfolio earlier than you want to. The way to counter this is not with a fixed annuity alone. If you have a fixed annuity, it's not going anywhere. If inflation is on the rise, you're still getting the same amount. So we have to add a cost of living adjustment to the fixed annuity. This example here shows how your payout would look with an annual annuity payment with no rider. The rider is what they call a cost of living adjustment. So you're getting a flat rate, $20,000 every year. And then with the rider, these two annuities, they would cost the same amount. But with the rider, your initial payout is a little bit lower. They're starting you out at $18,000. So you can see in years 1 through 4, you're getting a lower payout than you would have if you went with the fixed annuity. But starting in year 5, you actually start getting paid a little more. That way, by the time you get to year 9 or 10, in total, you've been paid out the same amount as the fixed annuity. But then in years 11 through 20, as your portfolio would normally be getting drawn down, you're going to be getting more and more from your annuity to cover that increase in cost of living. The third major risk that retirees face is longevity risk. If you live a long time, which is, that's a good thing, right? If you live longer than your life expectancy, then there is a chance that you're going to draw down your portfolio of 60% stocks and 40% bonds. Even if it works out great, you get the full 30 years, but then you live past 95, well, that's no good, right? So you need an annuity that's going to pay you out the most amount of money if you live a really long time. So I talked about the death annuity earlier, how it's really scary that you could lose your nest egg if you die. Well, the cost of getting paid back your principal, if you want a death benefit from your annuity, is they give you a lower payout over time, which means you have to spend more money on that annuity to get the same payout. If you go with the death annuity, then you don't have to put as much down. They're going to give you the higher payout because they're expecting to get that money back from you when you die. Now, if you live a long time, then you get to benefit from that higher payout for many years, thus taking care of the final risk that your retirement portfolio might experience. Losing your money in death does sound a little counterintuitive, but I gotta remember that I want the higher rate for as long as I am alive. I don't want the annuity that pays me back in death. I want the annuity that gives me the most benefit if I live a really long time. So the question is, what do I do? Real quick, if you're enjoying the video, please do me this one small favor and hit the like button. It makes a big difference for my channel. I would really appreciate it, and I'll continue to do my part and make better and better content. Back to the video. First of all, I do not buy an annuity while I'm young. Whenever I'm young, I want to be as invested as possible in the stock market because in the short term, I don't care about down years because I know in the long term, I'm going to get the best return. I'm not having to pull money out of my portfolio, so I'm not risking drawing it down to zero. I can ride out the periods of decline and then take full advantage of the periods of market growth. The second thing I'm going to do is invest in my health as much as possible. I want to have the problem of longevity risk. That's a great problem to have. And this allows me to get paid out the higher rate from the death annuity over a long period of time. Remember, when they are calculating how they're making money, they're looking at averages. They're assuming the average person is going to die on the day of their life expectancy. The people who die younger pay for the people who live longer. So if I want to counter longevity risk, I want to assume that I'm going to be in that longer living category. To do that, I'm going to invest in my health as much as possible while I'm young. This is just a win-win scenario in every way because I'm going to have more fun for longer. I'm going to have a longer lifespan and a longer health span. The third thing I'm going to do is when I get older, I'm going to purchase an annuity for a very specific purpose. I'm not using all my money to buy a massive annuity. I'm going to pay for the bare minimum of what I need for that death annuity to cover my basic expenses. And this factors in with Social Security. Social Security is an annuity that has a cost of living adjustment. And when you die, it's gone, right? It is the same thing. I'm basically trying to mimic the Social Security annuity only in the event that Social Security is not enough to cover my basic expenses. If we look at this benefits calculator, if I wait to pull out of Social Security until 70 to get the maximum benefit, and then my salary while I was working, if that was about $60,000, then I would get $2,238 per month from Social Security. This comes out to about $27,000 per year. So if that's a little bit low for me, if I don't think that can quite cover my bare minimum expenses, then I will buy an annuity that just covers the difference. Maybe I need $40,000 a year to be comfortable at the bare minimum. I'll just use just enough money to buy an annuity that gives me that extra $13,000 per year in year one, and then increases with inflation from there on out. That being said, if I have a pension from a company that I worked for while I was working, it may not make sense to spend a little bit of extra money on an annuity. That pension might already make up the difference, and between the pension and the Social Security, that might have my basic expenses covered, and then I can let the rest of my nest egg ride on the stock market and the bond market to pay for all of the extra stuff, all of the vacations, the travel, the toys, whatever else I would want in retirement. The main benefit that you get from an annuity is happiness. You don't have to worry about the fear, uncertainty, or doubt that the stock market might crash, and you have to use some of your fun money to fund your basic expenses, to keep a roof over your head or food on the table. It is so hard to just spend freely and have a good time when there's this possibility of failure in retirement just looming over your head. So this is the primary reason for the annuity, because in the end, planning for your happiness is the most important thing. Many people are miserable in retirement, even though they've achieved financial independence and riches. If you're interested in planning for your happiness, check out this video where I share the stories of those who are miserable in financial independence and retirement. I share their lessons that they wish they learned before it was too late. Check it out. Catch you on the flip side.